Are you sitting comfortably? Some of this talk might come about because I turned a round number that doesn't start with 2 or 3 a little while ago, and it makes you look at your body and think, what the hell have I done to it, unfortunately. Since the 70s, we've all been spending a bit more time in front of screens, be it that their television, which was rather lovely because they used to have doors for when you weren't watching it. What a quaint idea. And obviously the modern multi-screen terminal, has been there for years and years. Compared with our parents and grandparents, we're spending so much more time in environments where frankly we're not moving. Prolonged sitting down, and it's not just at work, where you frankly can't avoid it, but quite often it's in your cars, in your journeys, and in your leisure activities. Wow, there you go. I was in Manchester yesterday, and that's real-time M6, 24 hours a day. The only thing that changes is the lights get darker, that's it. Standard office environment, and what about posture? Oh, it makes my back ache just looking at that one. There we go. There's been a lot of news reports. This is early this year, BBC News. There's tons of stuff. What you'll find is an awful lot of scientists are saying we think there might be a problem. Almost nobody's absolutely conclusively, definitely proving anything. And almost nothing I can find anywhere is absolutely conclusive in either way whatsoever, but everybody thinks probably the stuff we're doing isn't terribly good for us. So researchers believe that sitting for long time can increase the risk of diabetes, heart disease, and even death. None of those sound good to me. This is the one which I hadn't realised until recently, which was being sedentary is actually as much of a risk as not doing activity. So if you stood all day but you did no physical activity, that's also a risk. If you sit down all day and then you do lots of physical exercise, that's also a risk. It's beating both, which is kind of the problem we've got to address. In case the first 3 weren't enough of a worry, it also potentially can cause all of these other things. I don't think any of them are good from what I've seen. There we go. So what can we do about it? Well, fundamentally, you can look like a prat in your office. This one I'm particularly like. But if the person who sits opposite you is a pain, oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to avoid having a backpack. In all seriousness, just doing a little bit of light exercise makes a massive, massive difference to things like your circulation, the blood flow. It actually helps you focus more. It actually helps you be more productive. So all these annoying things that will make you better at your job while doing something that doesn't involve drinking jolt. Well, there we go. So sitting for 8 hours at a time may be inevitable, but it's all the other stuff. It's the kind of habit-forming stuff that I think it's mostly being mindful of. Now, frankly, I didn't pay any attention until I crossed that number, I won't say. But very soon I'm about to become the answer to the life, the universe, and everything, which you might recognise that reference to. So what I did was I bought an exercise bike for my home office. And this epic piece of technology is a granny tray. It's one of those things that's got bean bags underneath it, and it perfectly sits on top, and it holds exactly my laptop and a phone. The key is gentle pedaling. Right? If you go fast, everything falls over. Now ultimately what I've started trying to do is, if I'm like downstairs watching telly, playing on the PlayStation, even reading a book, because you go gently, it's not about pounding away, it's not about putting on your sports stuff, it's about just taking 10 minutes on the bike and gently doing a few miles. I've actually done 500 miles on this thing this year alone. The thing you have to be really careful of is, if you're on a long conference call, if you get out of breath, people will get the wrong idea of what you're doing. I went on holiday for a week, I came back, and I did 25 kilometres in the time it took me to clear my inbox, so it wasn't a complete waste of time. I also went for these quite recently, a sit-standing desk. This one is brilliant because it's slightly manual. You don't have to be built like John in order to do it, even I can do it, but pretty much within seconds you can transfer the entirety of your desktop up. And I've now built myself up to doing, I can do about 4 or 5 hours a day. Goodness, when I first got it, you stand for 20 minutes, oh, it's unbelievably hard work. Your knees go funny, your feet get really sore, but I've gradually built up to the point where actually, I think it's going to save us money with heating bills. Because if I'm sitting down, I don't know about you, but I get quite chilly. Standing up for a few hours, and I'm literally taking off the layers, so whatever is going on, while it might not be scientifically provable, my body is definitely producing more energy, and I'm getting nice and hot. Other stuff you can do is, love that excavator. Wow, odd that. There's almost nobody queuing for the stairs. That's curious. And the next shot you've probably seen before on like Tumblr or somewhere, but it's the access to the gym that has 2 escalators and a set of stairs. The simple choices like that one make all the difference. Now, I bought a Fitbit. Actually, I'll come to that in a second. So, forming habits. There's a whole lot of books saying 21 days, but actually, there's a lot more evidence that it's more like 2 months. Just over 2 months gets you to the point where you go through the stages of the honeymoon, which is pretty much where you spend money. You buy all the gadgets because this is bound to help you in the long run. Then there's the fight through, which is where you really can't be asked. And eventually, if you keep going, there's a bit where you can't remember it ever having been different. You achieve that one, and as long as you don't relapse fully backwards, then you can start to actually do these things, and it doesn't really impede, it doesn't feel like you're doing anything. It's just a natural thing to do. So to me, to keep along, you can't really manage things unless you're measuring it. Right, so I've got my Fitbit, and it staggers me how little I move. Even when I go into the office in London, and I walk what I think is quite a long way, I never get to my 10,000 steps. It's quite amazing just how little I walk, even when I think I'm trying really hard to do extra walk. So there's tons of stuff. Frankly, for the kind of people probably in this room, the quantified sense of itself is where it gets interesting, all right? Because most of these things have got decent APIs and data feeds. Fitbit's got a nice IFTTT thing to it, so you can start sending things that automatically send you text messages saying you're being a lazy stud, that kind of stuff. Or you can send a Twitter out. I love the idea of this one. Ideally, you should send Twitter out naming and shaming yourself. You should tweet automatically saying, yet again, I have failed to do what I promised myself I would do. So this is a slightly odd one, because what I decided to do to myself, and this has worked out really nicely, is I actually take a longer route. So I now walk to a more distant tube station when I go into London, and then I actually walk through one of the parks to get to another tube station. And on the way, to stop me getting bored, I take pictures. And it's actually become something which I completely love doing. And as I stand on the tube, and I hate the tube, I'm not a Londoner, but I use a little thing, my goal is before I get to the office, I make all these little collage things and I post it. And it's become a thing that forces me, through doing something that's slightly interesting, to actually walk, and I finally now am hitting my 10,000 steps. But it's one of these things where, as long as it's a chore and a pain in the backside, you can't really be bothered to doing it. But as soon as you accidentally disguise it into something that's slightly interesting, I think the habits start to form, that kind of stuff. So,
Which park is it?
The Italian Gardens near Hyde Park. So what do you do tomorrow? Frankly, just stand up a bit more often. Just give your body a little bit of a break from sitting down. Do some gentle stretching without kicking people unless they're annoying you. And if anybody from HR's in the room, I didn't condone that at all. Take the stairs. This one is the most easy one to do, right? Because there's always a queue for the escalators anyway, so it saves you time. You can already raise people up anyway. And just take a slightly longer walk. And that was it. It wasn't 5 minutes, but thank you very much for your time.